John Heilemann, we've all heard now, been talking about it over the past hour, about the send her back chance. Put that in perspective. Where does that put us as a country? Where does that put our politics?
Well, I think in an incredibly depressing and I think dangerous place. You know, it's not just that. I mean, this week has been. I think you said in the 6 o'clock hour, Joe, that it was the low point for the Trump presidency. I think last night. And there have been a lot of low points, but last night, I think, really was the low point in the sense that, you know, the president's racism and bigotry and idiocy have been on display on many occasions, never more glaringly than this week. But to see the president of the United States standing at a rally, I think there's no way to interpret what he did yesterday other than to say that he's placing a target on the back of a United States citizen. He's saying he's inciting, whipping up a frothy chant and a violent impulses among his followers towards a United States citizen, elected member of Congress. I just thought, I mean, I have had very low standards when it comes to what I expect from Donald Trump, but I never thought I'd see a president of the United States. He's picked on private citizens before. He's never incited violence against an individual private citizen in quite this way. And as I feel as though you can feel that the temperature is rising. You know, the kind of predictions that people have made that we could be heading into 1968 kind of 1972 kind of George Wallace kind of campaign. We have still a long time between 15 months before Election Day, and as bad as things are right now, and they are really bad and really ugly and really dangerous, they are just going to get worse. And at this moment, I think that should cause everyone who does not want to see violence in American political life to be very afraid.
Yeah, and here's the moment that John was talking about from last night's rally in North Carolina.
Representative Ilhan Omar. Omar laughed that Americans speak of al-Qaeda in a menacing tone and remarked that you don't say America with this intensity. You say al-Qaeda makes you proud. Al-Qaeda makes you proud. You don't speak that way about America. She looks down with contempt on the hard-working Americans, saying that ignorance is pervasive in many parts of this country. And obviously and importantly, Omar has a history of launching vicious anti-Semitic screeds.
So, Claire, it can happen here. It is happening here. A United States Senator was there last night, Thom Tillis. And we will see what Thom Tillis says this morning to the people of North Carolina, who will be deciding whether they reelect him in 2020 or not, about a president that's talking about,
breaking federal law.
Breaking federal law. I mean, this is a violation of federal law, as we said last hour. The federal government sues companies whose employees say things like, and they use this, go back to where you came from. Quote, that is a quote lifted directly from the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and the federal government regularly sues people who say that in the workplace.
I think, Joe, if we isolate what we just saw and think about it in perspective, you have to realize we now have the leader of the most powerful country in the world that has staked its claim to freedom and the First Amendment. And we now have a president that sees the path to power through hatred, that he is going to hold on to power through hate, anger, and fear. It is frightening for people who are not worried about it, who think this is just another cheap political trick in Trump's book. This is much more than that. This is a watershed moment, I think, in our country, and people need to talk about it with that kind of gravity, because if he allows these chants to continue, then he is putting the stake in the ground that we're not a country about freedom and the First Amendment, and that it's okay to criticize your country in America because we relish diversity of all kinds. Instead, this is an ugly, ugly page in our history, and it makes me sick to my stomach that he has the power to do this and is wielding it like this.
You know,
Mike Pence?
Joe, as you watch this coming from a podium with the presidential seal in front of it, and he's president stepping back and allowing the "send her back" chant to take place, I guess I would appeal to the president. Maybe you would too if we could get a hold of him, which we don't talk to him anymore. But is that all it takes is for one person to hear that message, to take that signal? I'm thinking about the Pizzagate, totally made up conspiracy theory, where it was floating around the internet during the 2016 campaign. A guy walked in 2016 to a pizza place in Washington, D.C. with an AR-15 and started shooting because he heard some signal. He believed something that he heard in the atmosphere. And when the President of the United States stands up there and delivers a message like that and allows it to echo in that arena and to gain steam and not to squelch it, that carries more power than any internet conspiracy. All it takes is one person, one deranged person, to hear that message. And we're in a very, very dark place in this country.
Well, and the problem is, Willie, the President of the United States knows this.
Yep.
And he doesn't care. He knows that he had somebody that made pipe bombs and going to direct those pipe bombs against the president's political enemies. He fortunately was captured and arrested. You, of course, have the lieutenant in the Coast Guard that had a kill list.
Yep.
And the kill list was of reporters, of journalists, of talk show hosts, of members of the Democratic Party, leaders of the Democratic Party, of Democratic presidential candidates. And that had the kill list and was actually getting the guns, the weapons, the ammunition that he needed to kill all those people. Fortunately, he too was arrested. But not only did the president not condemn those acts, we couldn't get one Republican member of Congress to condemn those people with their kill lists. So the president knows perfectly well what he's doing. Bob Costa, it was just like during the campaign where he told people in the audience that if they had legal fees for beating somebody up, he would pay for it. Time and time again, he incited violence. We have of course, the time that he talked about, quote, Second Amendment solutions to stop Hillary Clinton from appointing federal judges. Said that in a rally too, and of course, there seemed to be no consequences for Donald Trump, and he energized his crowd by these lurches towards violent imagery.
And the crowd was a snapshot of the Republican Party, a Republican Party that this week only had 4 members of the House decide to rebuke President Trump on the House floor about his racist tweets. And you have people inside of the White House who say, as long as this economy is strong, and the Federal Reserve does not start to tick up the interest rates at all, and as long as the Republicans in Congress remain in the president's shadow and refuse to break with him because they fear his opposition in a primary or a general election, President Trump will continue to make these kind of comments and try to cast the Democratic Party as the party of Representative Omar rather than running against a Democratic presidential contender.
So, Bob, what do Republican members of Congress think? What does senators like Ben Sasse think, who have remained silent through all of this? Have they just decided they're going to make a deal with the political devil and keep their heads down even when the president is talking about driving a lawfully elected American out of the country?
Many of them are keeping their heads down. They're staying quiet. When you ask them why, they say they hear the media and other critics of President Trump's conduct who are rightfully raising real concerns about this kind of racist language and this kind of conduct at rallies. They say the institutional capital of the president's critics or of just reporting has been diminished by a president who every day is going out there in a relentless fashion and trying to erode the institutional integrity of gatekeepers, of the media, of political leaders in both parties. And because of that style and the relentlessness of it and the inability of many of his critics in both parties to counter it or to have the energy to counter it day in, day out, they feel like they don't really have a strategy in terms of what's next or what actually comes next for this country.
Yeah, you know, Willie, I'll say this again because I think it bears repeating, especially for the Republicans listening. We were a few of the people and the entire mainstream media who said Donald Trump could get elected. He could get to 270. We were mocked and ridiculed for it, but we saw a pathway forward for him. I say now, this is a losing proposition. All Donald Trump is doing is hardening his 39% support that want to hear these sort of things. But he's motivating his opponents in a way that, the Democratic Party was attacking each other. Now they're united. And Omar is not going to be the face of the Democratic Party in 2020. It's going to be whoever they nominate. This is so short-sighted. It's not only immoral, it's just stupid. And I can't believe, Willie, that there's not a Republican on Capitol Hill in the United States Senate that doesn't understand that.
As close as we've gotten so far, Joe, this is Congressman Mark Walker. He's the vice chair of the House GOP. He wrote this tweet. He's from North Carolina, by the way, where the rally was held. He wrote, "Though it was brief, I struggled with the send her back chant tonight," referencing Representative Omar. "Her history, words, and actions reveal her great disdain for America and Israel. That should be our focus, not phrasing that's painful to our friends in the minority community." So, couched as it was, he struggled. That's as close as we've gotten to a rebuke of the president last night. That rally in North Carolina.
That is, of course, Willie, that is, of course, pathetic. He struggled.
Yeah.
There's nothing to struggle about. There's nothing to struggle about. And by the way, stop saying she hates America because she doesn't agree with you on every single point. It's being suspicious of Israel is not hating America. It's just not the same. And I say that as a guy who's about as pro-Israel as anybody on TV.
Well, so many of these congresspeople live in fear of Donald Trump. They don't want to cross him even on something as objectively bad as what we saw last night. And it was somewhat heartening, Joe, to see prominent conservatives last night saying, "No way. We disagree with her on all these issues, including Israel, but send her back to an American citizen who was duly elected." That's not how you argue with somebody. That's not how you persuade. That's not how you win an argument. But we haven't heard that from Congress.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.